Mega Man 6 is the final installment of the series on the NES and was one of the last games to be officially released for the system. Once again, we'll fight our way through 8 selectable stages where we'll ultimately duel the Robot Master boss. A victory will allow us to steal the Robot Master's weapon, which will be added to our ever-growing arsenal of special attacks. This game may not do much in the way of innovation, but is it really wrong to give the people what they want? Developer Capcom figured out a nearly perfect blueprint when they designed Mega Man 2, and that same game design still holds up today. This is a very polished entry in the series, so while it doesn't reinvent the wheel, it executes the blueprint in a satisfying way. As usual, the game was produced by the legendary Takuro Fujiwara, who was involved in almost every great Capcom game from this era. The music was composed by Yuko Takahara, a newcomer to the series. She delivers an excellent soundtrack in the great Mega Man tradition, and would go on to compose for Capcom's Aladdin, Mega Man 7, and Mega Man X. For many previous games in the Mega Man series, Capcom had held a contest where fans could submit ideas for new Robot Masters. Up until this point, the contest had only been publicized in Japan, but for Mega Man 6, Nintendo Power Magazine opened up the contest to fans in North America. More than 200,000 designs were submitted, and while 6 of the Robot Masters were once again selected from Japanese entries, 2 of the game's bosses, Nightman and Windman, were chosen from North America. There was just one problem. By the time Mega Man 5 had released in North America, the Super Nintendo was already on store shelves, and sales of 8-bit NES games were in decline. Concerned that the game wasn't going to sell very well, Capcom decided not to localize and publish it in North America. Luckily, Nintendo worked out a deal to publish it themselves. They had already been hyping the game up in the US, and they liked the idea of getting out one more AAA title for the old NES. The game got favorable reviews upon its release, although it was obviously criticized for its lack of new features. Still, for players that didn't have a 16-bit system yet, this game gave them something to get excited about. In modern times, the game is still appreciated by players and critics alike. Some will even argue that it's their favorite game in the series. When IGN released their list of the top 100 NES games of all time, they ranked Mega Man 6 at number 58. The game has been included on numerous Mega Man collections and is available on most of today's gaming platforms. Modern players that attempt this game will still have to deal with all of the challenges NES games are notorious for. While many of the bosses are tough, the real challenge of any Mega Man game is always the platforming. So there are plenty of bottomless pits and instant death spikes. If you fall one too many times, it'll be game over. But what if I told you the best way to get through every challenging stage? What if I showed you a secret trick that would allow you to skip multiple bosses? And what if I told you the best way to defeat every boss? Even Dr. Wily himself? Well, on today's episode of You Can Beat Video Games, we'll learn all of that and more. If you're new to the channel, we're doing deep dives on retro video games and giving you the professional strategies that can be used by the casual gamer. Please make sure to subscribe and check out YouCanBeatVideoGames.com for episode lists news, and official You Can Beat Video Games merchandise. And please join our Patreon for access to an exclusive Discord community and a chance to vote on future episodes. Let's get started. Alright, Mega Man 6. As the game begins, we see the story. The first annual robot tournament was held, and the ironic thing about that name was it was also the last annual robot tournament, because it was all a ruse by someone named Mr. X to take control of 8 of the world's most powerful robots. Spoiler alert, it's Dr. Wily, and he's barely trying this time. It's the 6th game, Dr. Wily. Do you really think that we would believe that there was just some other old man mad robot scientist that no one's heard of before? That's like when John Cena showed up as Dom's brother in the Fast and the Furious. Before we get started, there is a very interesting password you can use in this game, and it makes the shape of a big X starting at A1, so it's very easy to remember how to do it. Once you've put this password in, you'll notice that none of the Robot Masters have been cleared yet. However, we start the game with an item called the Energy Balancer, and that's it down at the bottom of the screen in the middle between the energy tanks and the extra lives. We are not supposed to have that item yet, and we can use it to trigger a glitch. You need to go to the Wind Man stage and work your way to this room where you can fight this Pandita enemy. We need to keep farming this enemy until it drops a small ammo refill item, and you can go back down the ladder to make this enemy respawn. So it may take a while, you may have to kill this enemy many times to get it to drop the item, but it eventually will happen. And then we need to get, there it is. We need to get the same item from this enemy right here, and oh, we got it on the first try, that's awesome, but if you don't get it on the first try, you can just walk back to the left to make that enemy respawn as well. Down in this room, we're going to clear these 2 enemies, and if one of them drops another small ammo refill, we may be able to skip a 3rd boss, but that's what this trick is going to do. After you collect those 2 small ammo refills, you just need to run out of lives so that we can get back to the stage select screen, and that should do it. Right away you'll notice that our password is different, which is very strange since we didn't actually clear anything, but you'll see here that Nightman and Centaur Man are gone. While that is a cool trick, we're going to start up an honest game without a password, and we are going to start with Wind Man. According to the lore of the game, Wind Man was originally used for agriculture and could somehow harvest crops. So while I think tornadoing your crops sounds a little bit extreme, I don't know, maybe it works. Clear the first 2 Pandita enemies with a fully charged shot, followed by a rapid fire set of uncharged shots. But when you get to this one, you need to trick it into shooting at you by jumping, and then you can climb up the ladder. So get it to shoot at you when you're farther away, then climb the ladder and take it out. In this room, you want to take out that cannon peller with another fully charged shot from the far right side. And we won't be able to clear these Cyber Gabiol enemies right now, so we just need to try to avoid them. They will shoot towards you whenever you get too close, but we can use that to our advantage. That's a great time to jump over them. The fans here can launch Mega Man way up into the sky, so we need to be very careful near this spiked ceiling. Simply walk across the last fan. Do not jump over it. Here we see the flipper platforms, and you can see how they work. Whenever you touch them, they will rotate on an axis in the middle and appear on the other side. So whenever you land on one of these, you want to jump off immediately and sort of anticipate where the platform is going to end up. We're going to slide under this enemy whenever it's moving towards us, so press down and jump to slide, and then we can slide under that bulkhead to collect a 1-up and some more health. Not bad. Up at the top of the ladder, we'll encounter some more panditas, and you want to get this one to aim at you and then move out of the way as you charge your weapon. Over here, there's a spot you can stand where the pandita won't be able to reach you, but you can hit it with a fully charged shot. Same thing down here. It won't be able to reach you, and we can just shoot it at our leisure. Over in this room, we don't want to get touched by this guy, so as it goes up, slide under it, and you should be able to escape unscathed. Blast through the enemies in this transitional room, and then drop down on the left side. We're going to make our way back across to the right, shoot this pandita from below, it won't be able to reach you from the platform right below it, and carefully make your way across this area. Remember not to jump whenever you're on a fan with the spikes above you. You'll see some power-ups on the left, but we won't be able to reach them right now. You would need the rush jet for that. But once we go through the gate, it'll be time to face Windman. Windman is sort of like Airman's big brother with multiple fans on his body and a go-go gadget helicopter on his head. The key to defeating this boss is staying far away from him as you charge up your Mega Buster and shoot fully charged blasts his way. If you're on the far side of the screen from the boss, you should be able to jump over his gyro attacks, and whenever he tries to suck you in, you should be able to slide to avoid him. Whenever the boss flies towards you, try to slide all the way to the other side of the screen, keep your buster charged up, and you should be able to easily defeat Windman. We don't have any special weapons yet, but if you did come here later in the game and had the Centaur Flash, that is Windman's weakness, so we'll take a look at how you would use it. The Centaur Flash can hit the boss no matter where he is on the screen. Its only limitation is it consumes a ton of ammo, and the boss gets a lot of invincibility after you hit him, so you just want to fire it very slowly. Make sure that Windman has stopped flashing before you fire it again, and if you had a full reserve of Centaur Flash, you can easily beat this guy. In this game, it's possible to defeat any of the bosses without using special weapons, so we'll be looking at least 2 strategies for every boss that we fight, one that uses a boss weapon, and one that does not. The W Storm that we got from Windman is the weakness of Flame Man, so that's where we're going next. Flame Man was designed to take advantage of thermal power, while most of the robots in this game use solar. That makes Flame Man a lot more adaptable in darker areas. Here in the oil fields, we'll encounter some hard hat or met enemies, and you want to shoot these as soon as they pop up with either a fully charged blast from your Mega Buster, or you could try the W Storm. The only problem with the W Storm is that it carries the enemies away, so they'll never drop power-ups for you. The flame tellies that float through this area drop fireballs that can ignite the oil below your feet. If they do, it will become lethal, so do not jump into any active flames. That's instant death. Ideally, you would try to destroy the flame tellies before they have a chance to set the oil aflame. Up here are some pooker enemies, and you need a fully charged blast of your Mega Buster to knock them over. If they land on the ground, they'll explode, and that explosion can damage you, but if they land in the oil or on open flames, you can jump on them to pump them across. So you need to jump slightly on the right side of the platform to get it moving to the right, and with each jump it will move a small amount. Keep hopping on those pooker platforms and they will safely bring you across to the right side. At the bottom of this ladder, we'll go through another transitional room filled with turrets. Get the turrets to shoot in another direction and then blast them with your Mega Buster. down here, we'll fight some fire boys. That's what they're really called. These guys are like living lighters, and they'll shoot fireballs at you that can ignite the oil slicks. The W Storm works pretty well against these guys, but we do want to save it for the boss. So we're going to use our M Buster and just try to stay out of the oil, even if it's not on fire. Over here we can get an energy tank, and it's hard to get it without going down into the oil, so make sure to clear out any fire boys in the area first. And then up here, we're just going to stay out of that oil and act like it's already on fire, because it's going to get set on fire pretty quickly. The good news is we've reached the end of the stage, although there's one more fire boy down here before we go through the gate. And that's going to bring us to Flame Man. And of course we already know that the W Storm is the appropriate weapon here, so we'll equip it before we enter his room. Flame Man has 3 main attacks. He will jump towards you, he will shoot fireballs out of his hand, or he will punch the ground and make flames pop out of it. Normally when you fight this guy and he does the ground fire attack, he's invincible, but the W Storms go right through it, so you can very easily beat this guy with the appropriate weapon. If you have to use the Mega Buster, it's a little bit more difficult. You want to stay about a medium distance from the boss, and you want to make sure that there's a good bit of space between the boss and the wall. So you don't want to be on the short side of the boss, because when he does the ground flames, they'll be very close together if there's not much space for them to spread out. As long as there's a fair amount of space, they are predictable, so if you stay just the right amount of space away from this guy, it's not that hard to avoid his attacks. Remember that you can't damage him with the M Buster whenever he's doing the ground fire, so use that as an opportunity to charge it up. You can choose any path that you want to take through this game, but you probably want to face Flame Man early, because the F Blast that you get from him is one of the best weapons for general use, and we also get the Rush Power Adapter, which is a very powerful weapon, and it's useful for breaking rocks and blocks. Next up is Blizzard Man, a robot that was designed to monitor Antarctic weather, but was retrofitted with the ability to make artificial snow, because I guess they just didn't have enough of it down there. Let's try out that Rush Power Adapter. You can skip this short cutscene by mashing the start button, and let's take a look at how it works. It has 2 basic modes. You can shoot it without charging it, or you can charge it up. When you charge it up, it will have very little range, but it hits extremely hard and can be used to break through certain types of walls. Look for things that have a crack in them. Beneath our feet is a different type of wall, the ice wall, that requires the F Blast to get through. If you have it, you can get a 1-up, but be careful that you don't bump your head jumping out. You would end up in the pit. If you quickly jump across these count bombs, you can get a health refill up here, but watch out for them when they explode. They can do you damage. Whether you took the upper or lower path here, drop down and try to hold to the left. This is where we can use that power adapter to clear out a cracked wall, and inside we'll find an extra life. Not bad. The floor down here is slick, but it won't impact us very much. Take out these curlingers with your power punches, and if you charge up the power adapter, you can hit these shield attackers from the front. We'll use our F Blast up at the top to get an E-tank, and then we'll slide down to the right. The F Blast is very good for general use, but we'll need it for the boss. Over here we can use our power adapter to punch through some more shields, and we can break this block to find some health. Be aware that when you're using any of the rush adapters in this game, that you will not be able to slide. Down in this transitional room, we'll fight a Squidon. A barrage of the F Blast will easily remove the Squidon. Just make sure that we save some of this ammo for the boss. Over here, we'll find a submarine that is sinking and rising in the water. We'll use our power adapter to clear out the cannon joes in this area, and we can use it to break through these ice blocks so that we won't have to jump near the instant death spikes on the ceiling. We could take advantage of the downward arcing trajectory of our F-Blast to safely get rid of another cannon joe, and over here we'll switch over to our power adapter to get rid of this ice block, but we want to turn it off after we do that because you can't slide when you have the rush adapters on, and we definitely want to slide to safely get across the bottom here without touching those instant death spikes. Make sure the submarine is floating upward when you do your slide. That's also the second E-Tank in this stage, so Blizzard Man's stage is a great place to stock up. Over here, we just want to walk over to the left and jump, but if you slide while you're on one of these countdown bombs, you can do some weird stuff. If you want to conserve your F-Blast against the Squidons, try using the W-Storm. It takes a little bit more and it carries the Squidon away, but it's almost as good. And over here, you just want to bump this countdown bomb at the end, wait patiently, jump on this one, jump back off to the left, and then head through the gate after it's been safely exploded. For the boss, we're going to switch over to our F-Blast, and although it doesn't look like we have a lot of ammo, this should be enough. It only takes 7 shots to kill any of the bosses with the weapon that it's weak against. The boss can't be damaged when he's in ball form, and he does an extra little bounce at the end, so wait for that bounce and then jump and shoot him with your F-Blast. If he does the snow and you're a medium distance away from the boss, you can walk towards a wall and then jump to avoid it. With the Buster, we want to make sure that we're avoiding this boss's attacks, so try to stay a medium distance away from the boss. This will keep you safe if he tries to charge at you with his skis, and if you see the snowflakes appear, you can run towards the wall and jump to avoid them, just like we did with the F-Blast. You also want to stay towards the middle so that it's easier to avoid the ball attack. You want to jump over it and go back towards the middle of the screen. Once the boss is unformed from the ball, you can hit him with a fully charged shot of your Buster. It shouldn't take too much to defeat this guy. The B attack that we get from Blizzard Man shoots 4 projectiles each time we fire it, and they're fired at 4 different heights, so they hit a very wide range of enemies on the screen. The problem with the B attack is it requires a lot of ammo to use, so we won't be able to shoot it very many times without depleting its ammo tank. Next on our list is Plant Man, the Flower Fancier. Plant Man can communicate with plants, although you have to wonder if they would have anything interesting to say. We just earned a new weapon, but if we want to experiment with the B attack, be aware that we're going to need full ammo to defeat the boss using this weapon. For a more general use weapon, the F-Blast is excellent. It just goes right through these enemies. This cracked barrel can be destroyed using a fully charged punch from our power adapter, and behind it we'll be able to get a health refill and a 1-up. In this transitional room, we'll encounter another power slam. This time let's try using rapid fire W-Storms. It'll carry him away. Up here, we'll switch back to the F-Blast, and we'll use that to quickly get through the small enemies in our way. They should each only take 1 hit from this powerful weapon. Eddie is back for this game, and just like in Mega Man 5, he'll pop open and give us a random item. Thanks, buddy! Down here at the bottom is a Gorilla Tank, a mini-boss that we can easily destroy with our F-Blast. It's kind of a joke. This small section introduces us to a new platforming device, Springs. Springs can vault Mega Man way up into the sky if you hold down the jump button, And even if you're not touching any buttons, you'll still bounce a little bit when you're on them. The springs are fairly safe at first, giving you an opportunity to get familiar with them, but as we head over to the right, there will be some instant death spikes above you, and you just don't want to tap the jump button at all. Just make your way across by holding right, and over here we'll be able to refill the ammo on our F-Blast that we've been using quite a bit of in this stage. So we'll fill that back up, and we'll continue over to the right where we'll face another gorilla tank, so it will be very good to have some more F-Blast available. Now for the tough part. We need to be patient and take our time through this section, because as you jump across the water, Gab-Gyro fish will pop out, and if they hit you in midair, you'll fall down into the water, and that's instant death. So you just want to get close to the edge and get the fish to pop out, then jump over. It's possible to step on these platforms without opening them up by shooting them first, but it's much more dangerous that way. So just take the time to shoot them, they'll open up, and make a much wider platform to step on. Don't forget about the fish. Anytime you're jumping over the water, you need to test to make sure there's no fish that's going to pop out first. So lure out a fish by getting close to the edge, and then jump across. We're almost to the end, but don't get overconfident. There's still some fish that could pop out of the water, and you'll want to use your F-Blast to take out these cannons in a single shot. Once the cannons are out of the way, watch out for the last fish and then jump across and head through the gate. It's time to challenge Plant Man. We know that Plant Man's weakness is the bee attack, but we can't be firing it recklessly. This guy puts up a shield, and we need to wait until he throws the shield at us, then we can jump over it, and then hit him with the bee attack. There's usually not enough time to hit him 2 times in a single cycle, unless you're getting very close to the boss, which is dangerous. I recommend trying to stay on the far right side, jump towards the boss to get over the shield, and then hit him with the bee attack and get back over onto the right side. It's hard for him to hit you over here, so just carefully hit him 1 time each cycle, and after 7 hits he'll go down. I tested every weapon against every boss in this game, and with only one exception, if you were not using the weapon that the boss is weak against, that weapon would either deal 1 damage or 0 damage to the boss, meaning it would usually take 28 hits to kill a boss with a weapon that it is not weak against. The only exception is Plant Man, which has a secondary weakness against the F-Blast. Now the bee attack deals more damage than the F-Blast, but you can kill Plant Man in 14 shots of the F-Blast, which is much better than the normal rate. With the M-Buster, we want to use the same right side of the screen strategy that we've been using so far, but we have a great opportunity to charge up our Buster while Plant Man is activating his shield, so charge it up, jump over the shield, and then launch the fully charged blast at Plant Man. Now if you have an opportunity, you may be able to score a second uncharged hit, which can deal a little bit of extra damage in the same cycle. So basically try to get back to the right wall, then turn around and start shooting at this guy, and you may be able to get in an extra damage. Plant Man will give us the Plant Bee, which is the shield for this game. As far as shield weapons go, the Plant Bee is a pretty good one. Whenever you activate it, it will consume some ammo, but then it will stay active until you are going to take a hit, and the Plant Bee will absorb that hit for you, then dissipate. It does consume a lot of ammo to activate it. But even better, we're going to get the Rush Jet adapter from this, and that's going to be very helpful moving forward. Our next boss up is Tomahawk Man, and unlike the previous bosses we faced that were repurposed, Tomahawk Man was designed specifically for the tournament. Let's check out that plant barrier. You can see it in action here. It can damage enemies, but it does require a lot of ammo. So we'll want to recharge that before the boss. The power weapon is quite good against these Coltons, and we can use it to smash these barrels. One of them contains an E-tank. So we'll want to pick that up. It's underneath this one. And don't try to jump over to those spikes. There is nothing hidden over there. Just drop straight down the shaft. We won't need the F-Blast for the boss this time, so we can use it liberally against the enemies here. And we're going to switch over to the plant piece so we can refill the ammo here. But later on in the stage, we'll find an item that will make managing our ammo a bit easier. Down here, we can use our F-Blast again against the back of the shield attacker. And this thing is called a metal poton. You can see that the vulnerable point is at the bottom, and it can be easily destroyed with your F-Blast. If you charge up your power adapter, you can knock these mollier enemies back in a single shot. So that's kind of fun to do. It can also bust right through a hard hat's helmet. So you can just crush it with the power adapter. In this room we'll meet Eddie again, but if we wait for him to reveal what item he dropped, and let's say we don't want that extra life, we could go back down the ladder and then climb back up to make him spawn another item. It could be the same one, it could be something different, but until we actually collect the item, we can continuously cycle Eddie until we get what we want. There are two paths here, and I recommend the upper one, but we'll take a look at the lower path first. Over here you can find a little bit of health. Once you move on, you won't be able to go back, so we're going to switch over to our rush jet, and we'll take a look at the upper path. Of course, if you've already made it this far, you might as well move on, but I do want to show you what the other path has to offer. Jet Mega Man does not have the chargeability that Power Mega Man does. Instead, you fly with the jet by holding down the jump button, and it decreases a power gauge on the left side, which refills whenever you stop using it. This is one of my favorite executions of Rush Jet in the series. It's useful but not unfair, and there's nothing worse than in the previous Mega Man games when you need the jet power up, but you don't have enough ammo for it, so you have to sit there farming enemies until you get enough. That's not a great experience. Down here there's another power slam that we can toast using our F-Blast, and in this room is another one of those metal potons, and while we could just use our F-Blast on it, if you're looking for an alternate strategy, try charging it up and then smashing the enemy that it drops while it's still concealed in its hat, then jumping and punching it uncharged 2 times before charging it again to clear the next enemy. Using that pattern, you can easily defeat it without taking damage. There are 2 paths here, and we're going to take the upper path first. That's where we'll find the energy balancer. So just go down to the bottom of this ladder, use your fully charged power adapter, and in this room we'll meet our brother Proto Man, who will give us the item. So what does this do? Well, whenever Mega Man is in his normal or rush forms, if he picks up an ammo refill, it will be automatically applied to whichever weapon needs it the most, so whichever one has the lowest amount of ammo. That's a handy item, but definitely not essential for beating the game. Up here you'll notice that there's a boss gate, but we don't want to go through it because that will lead us to the false boss. Now the false boss seems just like the normal one, except whenever you defeat the false boss, you will not get the beat parts for this stage. There are 4 beat parts, B, E, A, and T, and each one of them is in one of these stages that has a false boss and a true one. And here in Tomahawk Man stage, we need to use our rush jet to fly down across this lower section, and that will lead us to the true boss. You'll still get credit for completing the stage, and you'll still get the boss's weapon if you defeat the false boss. You just won't get the optional beat parts, which will give us a special weapon when we collect all 4. So make your way through the boss gate and equip the Plant B, because it's time to face Tomahawk Man. Tomahawk Man is one of the harder bosses in the game, and to defeat him, we're going to have to get uncomfortably close to use the Plant B. So you want to still move away from him and jump towards him whenever he throws a tomahawk at you or whenever he throws feathers. So make sure you're about a medium distance away, jump over whichever attack he uses, and hit him with the Plant B. Don't hit him very quickly with it, you need to wait until his invincibility shield wears off. With the M-Buster, we don't deal as much damage, but we can hit the boss from far away. If the boss jumps at you, slide underneath him, and try to maintain a medium distance from this boss as you charge your weapon. Whenever he throws a tomahawk or the feathers, make sure you're jumping towards the boss so that you get over it cleanly. Watch the boss for whatever he's going to do, keep charging your weapon, and eventually, he'll be defeated. The Silver T weapon that we get for defeating Tomahawk Man is great, especially against many of the late game bosses. It doesn't require very much ammo per shot, and it arcs slightly up when you shoot it. We also got the Beat B parts. If you missed out on the Beat B parts, you could always go back into Tomahawk Man stage and try to fight the true boss. You'll notice if you go back into one of these beat stages for a second time that there will be a different color palette the second time around. Our next boss is Yamato Man, the Master of the Spear, who was modeled after a samurai warrior. As you can see from this demonstration, the Silver T is both an efficient and effective weapon. So it's good against regular enemies, especially ones that are slightly above you. And you can see there's a block we can break here with our power, but first let's see what's going on the upper path. This stage splits in several places, but we're going to try to cover it all. You can get a 1-up on this floor, and then if you want to turn back around, there's going to be an E-tank if you take the lower path, but I'll show you what's going on up here. These enemies are very dangerous, but you can use the B attack to take them out. The other strategy you can use is to just stand in one place. The dragonflies will drop their bomb right in front of you, and will definitely miss if you don't move. From here, we just need to drop down to the right to move on, but I wanted to show both paths, so I'm going to head back to the left. Obviously, this is not recommended. On this backtrack, you can see how the standing still strategy works. Just stay in one place and the bombs will always miss. We'll head back down here. There's no 1-up right now, so we're just going to go down the ladder. And this time we'll use our power so that we can break through this block. It's kind of conspicuous sitting over here on the right side with all the cracks. We'll need to use power again to get through this room. This enemy, called a Ben K for some reason, can't be damaged from the front whenever he's spinning his spear, but you can use the Silver T to get underneath. Then we'll use our power punch to break through the wall, and we'll drop down on the right side. There's a health power up at the bottom, and once we go through into the next room, we're going to face a mini-boss. This monstrous combination, called Gamarn and Gamadayu, is a giant frog with a samurai on top. You'll want to stay over on the left side. When the samurai throws bombs, step forward and get between them. Whenever the frog shoots a laser, jump over it. Just keep charging your shots and shooting the frog in the eyes, and you should be able to get through. Our reward for taking this lower path is an energy tank, and to be honest with you, if you can execute on the strategies in this video, you won't need any energy tanks to finish this game, but if you ever get low on health, don't feel bad about using one to restore it. This is where the two paths converge, but there's more branching paths in this stage right here. This time, we definitely want to take the upper path. The lower path will lead to the false boss, and then we won't get the beat letter for finishing this stage. We'll need to use our jet power to get to the true boss, and if you ever are unsure which boss is the correct one to fight, the one that requires you to have one of the rush powers is probably the boss that you're looking for. We're going to use our jet to make sure that we don't fall down here. If we do fall down below, that will put us on the path to the false boss, and we definitely do not want that. So just stay up here on the top path, work your way over to the boss gate, and here it is. It's time to face Yamato Man. The silver T is Yamato Man's weakness, so we will equip that before we head through the gate. And this guy has two main attacks. He'll either jump up in the air and throw 3 spears at you. You want to be sort of far away from the boss when he does this. That will make it easier to get between the spears. And his other attack is to throw 1 spear horizontally at you. When he does that, if you can avoid it, he'll have to go all the way to the other side of the room to retrieve the spear, and you'll have ample opportunity to deal damage to him. With the Buster, we want to make sure that we keep as much space between Mega Man and the boss as possible. This will make it easier to avoid the boss's 3 spear attack, and it will give us more time to damage the boss when he has to chase his spear with the horizontal attack. You'll also have more time to react to the horizontal attack, and even if you get hit by it, if you're far away from the boss, he'll still have to go all the way across the screen to retrieve his spear. The prize this time is the Y Spear, a fast-shooting weapon that can penetrate shields. So this is a very handy weapon. It shoots straight out horizontally, but the shots will come out at slightly different heights, which can make it difficult to aim. The Y Spear requires very little ammo to use, so it's a good choice against the general enemies. Next up is Nightman. Legend has it that Nightman had defeated over 1,000 other robots, meaning he was probably a favorite to win the tournament before Mr. X took over. Let's try out the Y Spears, a weapon that reminds me a lot of the quick boomerangs, except it has more range. You can see how very little ammo it consumes. We'll need to switch over to our power adapter to be able to punch through that green cracked wall, but behind it we can collect a 1-up, and down here if you charge up your punch, you can punch right through the browns, which are the enemies in the barrels, and you can also one-shot the Moliers that you'll encounter in this area where the spikes come down from the ceiling. Wait here until they pop back up, and then run over to the right with a fully charged punch. Keep it charged up in case any other enemies get in your way. There are a lot of enemies with shields in this stage, so we'll leave the power adapter on, and this cannon called a Tate Bow has a shield in front of it, but if you charge up your punch, you can punch right through it. Make your way across the wheels after defeating the enemy, and in this spot, you can just use your rush jet, although I'll demonstrate how easy it is to make it across without it. If you're feeling frisky, try doing the challenge without the jet, but if you want to be safe, it's much better to just fly up to the left. There are more browns in this area, and I'll show you what happens if you don't hit them with a fully charged punch. You need to shoot the barrel, and then a green head will pop out of the top, and you need to shoot that head to defeat the brown. It's much easier to just use your power adapter, charge it up and punch the barrel. That will take it out in a single hit. We'll meet Eddie in this stage, and just like the last time we saw him, we can keep climbing up and down the ladder to reset the item that he drops. If you collect the item, he won't drop another one, but until you pick it up, you can continue to reset it until you get something that you like. The enemies up here that are wearing the mortar boards are called brain breaks, and there are two ways that you can deal with them. They die to a single shot of the B attack, or you can try to rapidly shoot them with your normal gun. Either way will work, but make sure that you use your jet before you drop down here to collect an energy tank. This SW545 jellyfish robot will run right towards you, so just keep shooting and it will run right into your arm cannon. We're going to be bounced around in this area, but if we use our B attack, we can clear these enemies and then there won't be any real danger. So get close to them, use the B attack, and once they're out of the way, you can just bounce over to the right. Your charged up power adapter can also clear these guys, and we'll need to switch over to it anyways so that we can access the true boss. Yep, there's a false boss up here, don't go through that gate. Instead, break through this block and head down this way, where we'll find the true boss just below the false one. Hop over those spikes and pass through the gate, where we can switch over to our Yamato spears, because that's the weapon that we're going to use against Night Man. Without the spears, Night Man is a bit of a nightmare. He has a shield that protects him from the front, but that shield is completely ineffective against the Yamato spears. So just slowly shoot them at the boss. Each time you see that his invincibility has worn off, shoot another spear in his direction. It only will take 7 to defeat this guy. With just the M-Buster, it's going to be a lot harder. We're not going to be able to shoot through the shield. So there are 2 primary opportunities where we'll be able to hit this guy. Whenever he's jumping in the air, you may be able to catch him from behind if you can get underneath the boss. So when he does a big jump, get underneath him and shoot him from behind as he lands. Otherwise, you want to get as far away from the boss as you can, and when he shoots his mace ball towards you, he'll lift up the shield and that will give you another opportunity to hit him. Sometimes when you're on the far right side, it seems like he won't be able to reach you with the mace, but make sure you're not jumping when he throws it. The Night Sea is another great weapon. It shoots out in a small boomeranging loop, and you can affect which direction it flies by holding different directions on the controller. So it's sort of like the Metal Blades, but it doesn't have the same range. Our final robot master is Centaur Man, a robot that was originally designed as a tour guide. So I'm sure that's why he was equipped with the ability to teleport and freeze time. As usual, we'll try out our new weapon. You can see how the Night Sea can be shot upwards, and you can also shoot it downwards. It doesn't consume a lot of ammo, so this is one that you can use against your general enemies. Just be aware that we are going to be using it against the boss of this stage. We're going to be jumping over an open pit here, so I like using the plant barrier. That will keep us safe from the enemies flying through the sky. There's also going to be an enemy down in the water here, so use the plant barrier to go through it. A good portion of this stage is flooded, so get ready for some water physics. Whenever you jump while underwater, your jump will go much higher, so you need to be very careful where there are spikes on the ceiling. So use just a tiny tap jump to get across here, and the most difficult jump is coming up. You'll want to clear out this turret and watch out for the fish above, and you do need to hold the button down a bit to make that jump, but you want to release it before you hit the ceiling. That one's tricky. A small tap jump will get you over those spikes, and then it will be smooth sailing from here. In this room, we should shoot the enemies through the wall before moving forward. That will give us some safety, and then we can drop down below. This is a very interesting area where the water moves up and down on the ceiling. So you'll want to wait until the water is low if you need to make a big jump, especially right here. So wait until it's all the way down at the bottom and starting to go back up before you start your jump. That should get you across to the other side. A pair of pookers guards this ladder. Make sure to charge your buster up completely before shooting them, and stay away from them as they explode. We can grab a health refill underneath by sliding, and then make our way up the ladder. At the top of the ladder, it's Eddie again. We know how to take advantage of this guy now. If you don't like the item that he gives you, don't collect it and go back down the ladder. Then Eddie will cycle through to another item. It could be the same one, but it'll probably be something different, and if you keep going back down the ladder and up again, you'll eventually get what you want. We're almost to the end, but in this area we have to deal with the submarine flyers. I like to use the silver tees against these because they arc upwards, but you'll need to shoot them twice if you hit them in the cloud form first, or just once if they're already in their submarine form. When they're in the submarine form, they'll be able to travel along the water and they'll start shooting at you. In this room, take your time and wait for the enemies to drop before jumping across. So jump to one platform, wait, jump to the next one, and you should be fine. There's a squid on at the top and we can quickly remove him with our silver tees. And once again, there are two bosses, and the true boss is the one at the top. So we need to use our jet here. Just jump and hold down the button as you hold to the right, and that will bring you across to the gate. Centaur Man is weak against the Night Sea, so we'll equip that as we make our way into the boss's room. Centaur Man has the body of a horse, but he is unable to jump, so he will just move back and forth and will teleport when needed. When the boss teleports, he's going to try to reappear on top of you, but if you have a sense of how long the teleportation takes, you can manipulate his position by moving out of the way at the last moment. You want to stay towards the center of the room whenever you're fighting Centaur Man, because he shoots a projectile at the wall, and that projectile will explode and spread out. If you're far from the wall when it explodes, it will pass harmlessly over your head. One of Centaur Man's abilities is to freeze you in place, but if you're close enough to the middle of the room, you won't take any damage. It is a bit difficult to jump over Centaur Man because he seems very large, so make sure you're moving towards the boss as you jump over him, and you should be able to get across. Whenever the boss teleports, we can take advantage of that time to charge up our Mega Buster, and we should be able to deliver a fully charged blast whenever he reappears. Just keep doing this and stay towards the center of the room, and you should be able to defeat Centaur Man with whichever weapon you choose. The C-Flash weapon that we get from Centaur Man is very powerful. It can clear all of the enemies on the screen in a single burst, or at least deal significant damage to stronger ones. However, it doesn't work against most of the bosses, and it takes a lot of ammo to use. You won't get too many bursts of it. And that's it! We've defeated all 8 of the Robot Masters, so it's time to take on Mr. X at Mr. X's castle. Once we get started here in Mr. X's castle, our weapons will not automatically be refilled between stages, so unless we plan on using continues, we will need to be a little bit more careful about how we use our ammo. You can see how powerful the Centaur Flash is, but you can also see how much ammo it consumes, so we won't be able to use it very often. We can just use our M-Buster here, charge it up, and shoot the cannons as soon as they lift their shields, or you can use your power adapter and charge it up to punch right through the shields. The B attack will clear out this enemy without you having to get very close, and up here as we encounter a cannon peller, let's try out Beat. If you defeated all 4 true bosses, you'll be able to summon Beat, the robotic bird that will go after the enemies and clear them for you. You'll need to use your jet to get up to this ladder, and then we should take out these enemies before moving forward. The B attack works great. You certainly don't want to get knocked down into the spikes below. You may have a moment of invincibility where you could escape, but you'll likely die if you fall down there. There's a branching path here with an obvious broken window, but it's actually tricky to get to. You want to set up the platforms like this, then equip your power. Charge it up, jump over, and punch through the window. If you set up the platforms properly before you turn on your power, you should be able to get through. This is absolutely the recommended path. It's much easier to get through, and there are a ton of power-ups to find. You'll need to use your power to smash through some blocks. Don't just try to slide under there, you'll end up in the spikes. Smash this block as well, and we can pick up some ammo refills. And then we're going to be able to smash one final block at the end that includes 4 extra lives. So that's the most exciting part of all. Get over here to the end, smash this block underneath the ladder, and pick up your reward. 4 1-ups. At the top of the ladder, you'll find the gate that leads to the boss. Its name is Rounder 2. There are actually quite a few weapons that work pretty well against Rounder 2, but I would say the very best is the Silver T. One thing you're going to need to do as soon as this battle begins is jump over the Rounder at the bottom, and you'll only be able to damage these enemies when they open the bomb doors at the bottom to try to shoot at you. Try not to waste too much ammo by shooting at the boss while the bomb doors are closed, and if you stay on the right side of the room, that will keep you out of the line of fire for most of the boss's attacks. So just keep shooting it with your Silver T and you should be able to easily win. Now let's take a look at the alternate path. There are several ways to defeat the cannon pillars. You might want to use Beat, or you may just want to use a single shot of C-Flash. We will have to equip our jet to fly over to the ladder. Just hold down the jump button and press to the right. And in this room we can use our B attack to take out this enemy while we're still on the ladder. So that's a very safe way to do that. And if we summon Beat, we should have no problem with the cannon pillar. We'll use our jet to get over the spikes here, so jump and hold down the button, fly up to the ladder, and that will bring us to the top. There are 3 cannon pillars up here, so we can get a 3-for-1 shot with our C-Flash, and we will need to jet over to the platforms on the right. I found in this next section, if you just hustle to the right and keep moving, all of the enemies will just jump over you, and you'll be able to get past them with no problems. So just quickly work your way to the right. We'll need to switch over to power here to go through this block. You could fly over it, but there's a bunch of enemies up there, and there is an energy tank inside, which is a nice little bonus if you do want to take that route. You can only hold up to 9 energy tanks at a time, so if you do have the maximum, consider using one before collecting another. Let's try using the power adapter this time. A fully charged punch can penetrate this boss's defenses and will cause it to change direction. So if you can catch the bosses down in the lower left corner, you can get them caught in a loop, or you can just keep punching them from this position until they die. That's almost too easy. And that's going to bring us to the second of 4 Mr. X stages. You probably know this if you've played Mega Man before, but just be aware that from this point on, any password you enter will always bring you back to Mr. X Stage 1, so you won't be able to save your progress using the password moving forward. Here in Part 2, pay attention to where you see those yellow caution stripes. That will tip you off that there's an area of the floor that you can drop through, and that can be particularly dangerous when we're walking over spike traps. At the beginning here, you can find some power-ups by intentionally falling in, and you'll want to use your power attachment here so that you can quickly dust the enemies. This last enemy is slightly below our position, so we'll use the F-Blast to take him out. A light tap of a jump will get us across at the end without touching the ceiling, and we're just going to run straight across this next bridge. We'll equip the jet for extra safety, but if you just hold to the right, you won't fall in. We need the jet at the end anyways to get over these last spikes, so there's no reason to not have it equipped. We'll keep our jet on here just in case we fall into a trap. The first one is safe, but the next one won't be. It does take some time for your jet to kick in after you hold down the button, so if you do fall into a spike trap, hopefully you'll have a few frames of invincibility when you land, and you can just jump and fly out of there. Otherwise, you'll probably die. This last stretch features a number of flying enemies, so I like to use beat here. If you don't have beat, you can try a bunch of weapons. The flame weapon is pretty good here, or you maybe just want to equip your jet. But if you have beat, that will make it a lot easier. We don't want to waste all of our beat power yet. It's a very useful weapon to get through the next few levels. So we'll switch back to the Mega Buster, charge it up, and stay fairly far away from these hard hats. You want them to pop open so that you can shoot them, but you also want to be able to avoid their shots. And that brings us to the boss gate. The boss here is called the Power Piston, and hopefully you have some silver tea to use, because this is one of the most difficult bosses in the game to defeat without a special weapon. If you stay all the way on the far left side, the rocks won't be able to reach you, but if you stand on this pipe formation on the left side of the room, that's a very good spot to fire the silver tea from. Most of your shots will hit the boss. Without special weapons, we definitely need to stay on the far left side of the screen so that we can avoid all of the falling rocks. You'll notice that none of the rocks will hit us over here. I'm using the jet because sometimes you just can't reach the power piston with your other weapons. The M-Buster and especially the power adapter are very difficult to use against this boss. So we're going to have to deal 1 damage at a time and do 28 hits to defeat this guy. So using this strategy, we need to be very focused on dodging the shots that the boss is firing at us. Don't focus on the rocks at all. From the far left side of the screen, none of them will touch you. So just completely ignore those and get yourself into the zone so that you can use the jet to fly up where you need to be, get a couple shots in, and avoid the boss's counterattack. Theoretically, you can deal a ton of damage to this boss by hitting it with a fully charged power punch, but good luck doing that. You need to stand very close to the boss, charge it up, and then just kind of hope that it walks all the way down the screen so that you'll be able to jump up there and reach it. Using the jet, you'll have a much more consistent avenue of attack, and you won't have to worry about the rocks. So while this strategy is certainly slow, if you don't have any silver tea available, this is definitely something to try. One thing that I really like about this game is that at no point are you ever forced to use your boss weapons, so you could potentially beat the entire game using only the Mega Buster and your rush attachments. Challenging yourself to not use any boss weapons is a way to add some replay value to this game, and it's kind of obnoxious when you just don't have enough ammo to beat a particular boss that requires a boss's weapon, so I appreciate that that's not a factor in this game. You also don't have the M tank in this game, so there's no way that you can refill your weapons on the fly. I think this is a good compromise when that item is not available. It's highly recommended that you use the silver tea for this boss, but if you don't have ammo for it, this is an alternate strategy that can work. At the very beginning of Mr. X Stage 3, we're going to be able to get some useful power-ups, so if you need another energy tank or maybe an extra life, you'll be able to pick one up right away. This is also helpful if you die and you need to continue. This will give you a good start at the beginning of your new game. Just hold up and you should be able to pass by that Ben K without getting hit, and grab the energy tank. Then you can just drop down the ladder, but make sure you catch yourself before you hit the bottom so that you don't get tagged by that enemy. We can use the B attack to remove this one on the left, and then we'll use our power adapter to break through the block and collect the extra life. After we punch this block, that enemy is going to come for us, and we can hit it with a fully powered punch to remove it. We did get hit doing that, but I think we'll be okay. Switching over to the jet will let us get up to the ladder on the right, and we're going to attack this enemy using the Night Sea from below. So stand in this position, jump and hold up as you shoot, and you'll be able to go right through his defenses. We'll use the jet to get up onto the ladder, and that will bring us to this area. Let the flame tellies drop their fire before you finish climbing the ladder. We won't be using the pooker on the other side as a platform, so just blast it with a fully charged shot of your Mega Buster, and that will bring us to these scale lifts. We'll put on the rush jet to make it easier to get over them, but if you stand on one of the two platforms, it will make the other one go up as it goes down. So it's fairly intuitive how you use these platforms. You can stand on one for a moment to elevate the other, and if you have the jet, you won't need to use the scale lifts very much. We can shoot this enemy and just fly over to the lower platform, using the one on the left as a buffer so that we don't hit the ceiling. Don't forget that you need fully charged shots to knock off the pookers, and stay away from them as they explode. In the next room, there are two paths that we can take that run parallel to each other. So we'll take the lower path down here using our power adapter to break through the blocks, and our reward for taking this path is that we'll be able to find an E-Tank. Don't forget you can only hold 9 E-Tanks at once, so if you already have 9, you may want to use one to refill your health before you pick up another. On the other hand, if you had to bleed a bunch of E-Tanks to get up to this point in the game, the fact that there are 2 of them to find in this stage is really nice. This last section features more scale lifts, and they're over an open pit again, so we'll want to switch over to our jet for safety. Watch out for the fire tellies that fly through here, and charge up a full Mega Buster shot to get rid of these pookers, before switching back to your jet to get past another set of scale lifts. You do not want to get hit by the enemies in mid-air here, so make sure to shoot any enemies that are flying your way, and then advance across the lifts. We can switch over to our power adapter to break through the block here and collect a health refill, but then switch back to your jet for safety. We'll use the jet to get to the higher lift over here, so fly up to it, and then we're just going to fly over this pooker. Don't worry about killing it. On the other side of this boss gate, we're going to face the Mettonger Z, a hard hat super weapon. The B attack is the best weapon to use here, so we'll equip it before we go into the room. One of the great things about using the B attack against this boss is that if you're close enough, you don't have to jump to hit it. Now, if you're on the other side of the screen, you will need to jump, but it's easier to avoid the boss's projectiles when you're just standing on the ground. Sometimes it will fire them horizontally and they'll just go right over your head, and other times they'll bounce around on the ground and you can figure out where they're going to bounce and just walk underneath. If your ammo for the B attack is not completely full, you won't have enough to finish the boss, so you may need to switch over to your M Buster to win. Fully charged punches from the power adapter deal massive damage to this boss, but it's tricky to land hits. It's possible to stand on the middle section of the boss, but you'll take damage for doing that. The best way to hit it, in my opinion, is to jump at the boss while it's rolling backwards, and try to catch it with a punch at the top of your jump. With a little bit of practice, that power adapter could be a great weapon to use here. And that brings us to the 4th and final part of Mr. X's castle. At the end of this one, we will face the old man himself. There's a large ammo refill here at the beginning of the stage, so we're going to refill the Night Sea as we're going to be using it soon, but you may have some other weapons that need more attention. On this floor, we can attack these turrets from the ladder. Make sure to move down the ladder to get away from their shots, and then you can just do small hops to get across the gaps. That will keep you from hitting the spikes above. We'll use our Night Sea to remove these turrets in a single shot, and we can attack them from below, which is nice. We'll slide underneath here, hit this turret, and then we're going to punch through these blocks on the left side. There's some power-ups to find in them, including an ammo refill and a big health refill, but if you need the health, it will cause the turret on the right to respawn, so keep that in mind. We don't actually need this energy tank, but if you do, you can pick it up now. And then we'll collect a few more bits of ammo, but go back up to one tier above before you slide under, so you don't get hit by these turrets at the end. We can use the Night Sea on them again. There are robotic birds called Peets here, which are I guess like an evil version of Beat. But if you have the power adapter, you can push this box with an X on it on top of them using a fully charged punch, and that will stop the pipe from spawning the birds. Not all of the peat pipes have a box near them, so you won't be able to stop all of them from spawning. So you want to take out one of the birds before jumping onto the pipe, and don't linger on top of the pipe for very long. We can use a fully charged power punch to break through this block from the ladder, and then we can climb right up to underneath where the cannon is firing and drop off while holding to the left to get into the area where the small HP refills are. These shield attackers cannot handle the Yamato spear. You can shoot it straight through the front of them instead of having to take them out from behind. There are two paths you can take here, and if we take this path on the right, I would say that this is generally the more difficult of the two paths. It's a little bit faster than taking the path that goes above this one, but there are open pits for us to deal with, so we'll need to take out the enemies before jumping forward, and we'll want to keep the jet on to make sure that we can complete all of the jumps. We'll take a look at the other path here in a moment, but that is the faster path, just the slightly more difficult one, and you will also get a 1-up if you take the other path, so I think the upper path is recommended. Down here we can grab another energy tank if we don't push the block on top of the peat pipe. Let's use Beat for a little bird-on-bird violence. Beat can knock out the enemies in this area, but we need to watch the ammo on Beat. We are starting to run a little bit low, so we'll switch back to the Night Sea to remove the last few before heading through the boss gate. It's time to face Mr. X in his X Crusher. The X Crusher is weak against the F Blast, so we'll equip that before we enter the room. Using the F Blast, you want to stay all the way on the left side, wait for the boss to drop a ball, and whenever it splits on the ground, you're going to jump, then jump a second time as soon as you land, and on that second jump, you're going to let loose an F Blast. So that's the rhythm that you want to use. Wait for the ball to split, jump over, jump again, and use the F Blast. It's very easy to defeat the X Crusher using that pattern. Let's take a look at the other path we could have taken through this area. Using the jet, we can fly up to this ladder, and this is the easier of the two paths. You want to lure that jellyfish bot to drop and then jump back to the ladder to avoid it, and we'll want to use our power adapter to clear out a block that's in our way, and then we can use whatever we want to defeat the enemies here. Beat works exceptionally well, taking out the enemies above and below as you walk through the corridor. You'll notice that there are no open pits that we can fall into up here, and there's also a 1-up at the end. Pretty good. As we drop down here, we'll merge with the other path, and we're just going to keep Beat active as we walk through this area, crushing through the peats and the turrets, and letting Beat do most of the work. Get him, Beat. We're really running low on ammo here, but whenever Beat runs out, he'll simply fly away. We had enough to get to the boss gate, and this time we're going to use the power adapter. Fully charged punches from the power adapter not only deal massive damage to the X Crusher, but they also knock it backwards, so it's sort of like a big punching bag. If you stand in this spot, charge up, and jump and punch, and you're trying to punch at the lower part of the X Crusher, You should be able to beat it with no problem. As the X-Crusher explodes, Mr. X reveals the truth. He was Dr. Wily the whole time, and it seems that his plan for world domination has failed. But it's time for the final battle to begin. Dr. Wily's new Skull Castle has a pagoda style, and there are 4 stages this time, although it feels more like 3.5. In the first part of Dr. Wily's castle, the power adapter is very useful for crushing all of the hard hat enemies here. Remember, if you power it up, you can punch through their defense. Watch out for the flame tellies that will drop fire on us, and there is an extra life inside that second block. We'll need to switch over to the jet adapter to fly up to the top here, and the rest of this stage is actually fairly short. We're going to be dropping down for most of it. A fully charged power punch can go through that turret shield, and then you can just drop off and hold to the right so that you don't fall on the spikes below. Even if you don't want to collect the health refill here, make sure to switch over to your jet, and don't fly too high so that you hit the spikes. In this room, you just want to hop off and then drop down, and then you can quickly drop through here as well. Hold to the right so you don't hit the spikes in that room, and when you see the room with the blue walls, that's where you want to start holding down the jump button to engage your jet. You need to do it in the room above this one, or you won't be able to make it to the right in time to get to this hidden area. Make sure to take the ladder on the right and hold to the left as you jump off of it, because there's a spot where you'll fall through the floor in the middle. Use your power punch to break through this block, and then hold to the right as you fall so that you can get these ammo refills. We are not very far away from the boss gauntlet, so keep that in mind when you decide which weapons to refill here. After collecting those items, we'll switch over to the F-Blast and drop down to the right. In the next room, there's a Ben K, and if you move forward and jump near this divot in the ceiling, you'll be able to arc your shots over and hit him even when he's spinning his spear. A Squidon can be very quickly removed using your F-Blast, as can this Cannon Joe. Once all the enemies are out of the way, we'll head through the boss gate. It's time for our first Dr. Wily boss. It's time to face Mechazaurus, an enormous robotic dinosaur. This boss is weak against the Yamato spear, so we'll equip that. And the basic idea is to ride on these platforms, and you want to aim for the area right between the eyes and the snout on this boss. It's kind of tricky to hit it with the Yamato spear because it shoots in an unpredictable way, and sometimes you'll feel like you should certainly be scoring hits when you seem to miss. The good news is the Yamato spears can kill this boss very quickly, so it won't have much time to deal us damage. Now let's take a look at what happens if you don't get into the hidden area. So we didn't get there with the jet this time, and that brings us to this room that has 2 cannon pillars. If you take a damage and then just walk through the spikes on the left, that may actually be the safest way to get through there, assuming that you won't die from getting hit one time. In here, you want to just drop off and quickly hold down the jump button so that you can catch your jet, and then hold to the left to get over the spikes. It's a little bit harder than it looks. Ideally, you would be able to skip all of those rooms because you made it into the hidden area, but if you miss it, you miss it. It's not that difficult to get through there. Once again, we'll use our F-Blast on the Ben K. We'll pick up a few items, and then instead of using the F-Blast this time, we'll use our power adapter against this Squidon. It's not quite as good, but it's fairly effective. Don't worry about charging it up, just get in front of this guy and use your normal uncharged punches. We can do the same thing to this Cannon Joe, and we're going to be using the power adapter against Mechazaurus, and it's even better than the Yamato spear. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Position Mega Man so that his left foot is touching the first green line on the left side. And I'm talking about that pipe formation below him, so you're lining up in this spot. You will be safe here from Mechasaurus's fireballs. You'll notice that they either go over your head or they land right in front of you. And if you charge up your punch, you can punch the platforms back into the boss, dealing 1 damage each time. So while it does take a moment to defeat the boss this way, it's completely safe, so even if you limped into this room with 1 health left and no ammo on any of your weapons, you could still defeat this boss. It's really that easy. Defeating Mechasaurus will bring us to the second stage of Dr. Wily's castle, and this one is frozen and cold, but it's not very long, so we should be able to get through it no problem. At the very beginning, we'll have the opportunity to pick up an E-tank. We just have to switch over to our power adapter, charge it up, and punch through the wall. You'll notice that this area is a little bit slippery, but it doesn't make a huge difference in the platforming here. There's not a lot of hazards to slide into. There's some shield attackers in this area, so either use your Yamato spear to shoot through them, or you could charge up your power adapter and you'll be able to punch through the front of them with that device as well. There must be a rule that requires the developers to put Yoku blocks in a Mega Man game somewhere, but you can mostly bypass them in this area, although there are 2 different paths that you can take here. If you use the F-Blast, you can shoot through the frozen wall on the right side, and then you can use your jet to fly up into this area. The power adapter is great for punching through these shielded turrets, and then we'll make our way over here to the right. That path is a little bit faster, but the upper path has a better reward. You'll be able to get an E-tank if you go that way instead. And we'll take a look at that path in a moment. For now, we're just going to drop down here and head to the right. This area is infested with brain breaks, and if we use our jet adapter, we can fly up to get these power-ups, but just make sure you don't hit the spikes. It might not be worth it to get that health refill. Keeping the jet adapter on, we can just let loose a hail of bullets on the brain breaks, which will get rid of them fairly easily. And that brings us, once again, to a boss gate. This time, the boss is weak against the W-Storm, so that's the weapon we're going to equip as we fight the tank CS2. Face left, jump, and turn to the right as you launch a W-Storm into the cannon. That seems to be the best way to actually hit the boss with this weapon, and it won't take very many hits to win. Now let's take a look at that other path. You can use your jet to fly up onto that block, and then just switch to any non-rush power so that you can slide under, and we'll be able to access this upper path. There's a bunch of brain breaks up here, and you just want to fire rapidly at them. Don't worry about charging your weapon. It's a lot easier to defeat them with just non-charged shots. At the very end, you'll be able to get your reward of the energy tank, and then we'll drop down here where the paths converge. We'll refill our Yamato spears, and then we'll drop down below, and that's the area where there is more brain breaks that leads to the boss. We'll fly up here and grab this ammo refill, and then we could pick up that health refill, but it's safer not to, considering that we have full health already. So we're just going to avoid it and head through the boss gate. For this boss, I'm going to show 2 alternate strategies, and the first one is using the Yamato Spear. The Yamato Spear doesn't deal as much damage as the W-Storm, but you can shoot the boss with it from all the way across the screen, and it deals almost as much damage, so this may actually be a better choice. It won't take too much to defeat the boss using your Yamato Spears, and it also doesn't require much ammo from the weapon. The no ammo strategy this time is to use the power adapter. If you charge up the power adapter and can actually hit this boss, it deals a lot of damage, but it's better to just not charge it up and keep jumping and shooting uncharged shots at it. It doesn't deal as much damage when it's not charged up, but it does quite a bit of damage and will effectively deal with this tank. And that brings us to the third Dr. Wily stage, the Boss Gauntlet, also known as the Capsule Room. Before we actually get to the Capsule Room though, there is a short stage that we have to pass through, and it's a watery area with SR300 fans. These fans are fairly obnoxious because they can pull you and push you, and that could land you into some spikes. There are a bunch of good items to pick up here, including an energy tank and numerous ammo refilling items, which we might need for the boss gauntlet ahead, but if you have a good amount of ammo already and you don't really need these items, it is definitely better to just try to fly over all of this mess using your jet. Even if you are going to collect the items, you should switch over to the jet. It will give you some advantages as you pass through this section. Once we get up this ladder, we are almost to the capsule room, but we have to pass through this transitional room first. If you have any charges of Beat left, we're not going to need him moving forward, so we can use Beat to clear out those turrets, and then we'll use our jet adapter to fly up to the ladder. And here it is, the capsule room. Each time we defeat a boss in the capsule room, we'll get some of our health back, so ideally we want to start out with one of the more difficult bosses, like Tomahawk Man here, and if we take more damage than we refill, we can go to a less difficult boss next. So we'll see how this one wraps up. Almost completely full health, but if we needed it, we could go into Windman here, which is by far one of the easiest bosses, especially using the Centaur Flash. So remember, you don't actually have to aim the Centaur Flash, but you need to shoot it very slowly so that it doesn't get interfered with by the boss's invincibility frames. Wait until he stops flashing, then shoot it again. Something that you should keep in mind here is that if you are low on any of the weapons, you could always use the power adapter against these bosses. Don't worry about charging it up. It doesn't deal more damage against the bosses when you charge it, and the only one that you would actually want to charge it up against is Flame Man, because you can use it to penetrate his shield when he does the ground attack. But the power adapter will defeat any of these bosses in 14 hits, so if you need it, you can always switch over to that as an alternative. For Yamato Man, we will be using the Silver T. The Silver T is the most important weapon for the final boss, so we will want to make sure that we refill this weapon at any opportunity. We'll pick up that health refill, and now we'll do an easier boss. We'll pick up Plant Man, he's right below Yamato Man, and hopefully we'll be able to defeat this guy without taking very many hits, and we'll be able to get back to full HP. We'll use our B attack. There is an alternate weapon to use against Plant Man, and that is the F Blast. So if you do run out of B attack, you could switch over to that instead of the power adapter, but the power adapter is also good. Don't worry about charging it up. If you use it, it will not penetrate the shield. Just shoot him with it after the shield is thrown. Nightman is down here in the lower left corner, and I would say that this is one of the harder bosses to defeat without the appropriate weapon, but you should have an amount of ammo for the Yamato Spear. It doesn't require very many shots to take this guy out. 7 hits will do the job. Just don't shoot him too quickly, wait for his invincibility frames to wear off, and don't worry about the shield. The Yamato Spear goes right through. Over here on the far right side, we can take on Flame Man, And we'll leave Blizzard Man for last. Blizzard Man's one of the easier bosses. Remember, against Flame Man, when you're using the W Storm, you don't have to worry about him defending your attack, and you want to try to keep a medium distance from him so that the flames will go around you. Blizzard Man is the last boss here, so we'll switch over to the F Blast. Remember when you're fighting Blizzard Man that you cannot damage him when he's in his ball form, so wait for him to reform whenever he turns into a ball. And you want to keep a medium distance from this guy so that when he does his snow attack, you can walk over to the wall and then jump. If you're not a medium distance away from the boss when he does the snow, he may do a different pattern, which is harder to avoid. If you've played other Mega Man games, you'll know that there's usually a 9th boss after you finish the capsule room, but not this time. Entering the 9th capsule will take us on to the final stage. The final stage is very short, and we're going to have to face a final boss that has 3 forms which will fight back to back to back, and against all 3 forms, the best weapon to use will be the Silver T, so make sure to fill it up when you have the opportunity to do so. There's a metal poton in this room that you can farm for items if you need to fill up your Silver T, but if you have a good amount of ammo, you can just blast it with your F Blast and make your way through. We'll meet Eddie right before we go through the boss gate, but that's it. Once you pass through the gate, it's going to be time to face Dr. Wily. Equip your Silver T as you pass through the second gate. This is the Wily Machine 6, and you'll want to slide under it as the fight begins. After it lands, it will shoot some projectiles at you. The first projectile should miss Mega Man if you're close to the boss, but you'll need to dodge the second one. Once you get to the second form of the boss, continue using the Silver T, but you'll notice that when he shoots at you, he only shoots 1 projectile at a time, so that form is not that difficult to defeat at all. Finally, we'll face the Wily Pod. This is the most difficult of the 3 forms, but with the Silver T, you'll notice that the upward arcing trajectory will make it easier to hit the boss even when he's way up in the sky. So carefully shoot him multiple times with your Silver T, and you should prevail. But let's say that you don't have any Silver T available. You could also use your power adapter. Remember that you can't slide when you have the power adapter on, so if it's equipped, you may need to do a small jump at the beginning of the fight to be able to run underneath the boss. Charging up and hitting it with a fully powered punch will deal it a ton of damage, so you're going to want to keep charging up and punching the Wily machine. In the second form here, you can get pretty close and just keep punching it 1 time after another. It's not very difficult to defeat that form with the power adapter. Then we have the final form. This one you won't be able to hit with your punches if it appears too high up in the sky. Whenever it appears low enough, you want to hit it on the right side and then try to stand underneath the right side of the capsule. That should keep you safe from its attack. It doesn't take very many fully powered punches to defeat the final form, so if you get lucky and it appears low often enough, we'll finally be able to put the Mad Doctor to rest. And that's it. We've done it. We've beaten Mega Man 6. All we can do now is sit back, relax, and enjoy the cheesy ending. This time, Dr. Wily is unable to escape, and Mega Man captures him. Considering the litany of crimes Dr. Wily has committed, it's no surprise that he's convicted and sent to prison. At long last, the world is at peace. The end. Of course, we all know it's only a matter of time before Dr. Wily breaks out of prison and resumes his robot reign of terror, but at least for now, we can sleep soundly in our beds. I think for the 6th entry in the series, the developers realized that people didn't care that much about the story, and we were just looking for an excuse to blast robots. Although I think they could have put a little bit more effort into it. If I were writing the story, I like the idea of the robot tournament, and maybe I would have just left Dr. Wily out of it at first, and said that the combatants in the tournament suddenly started to act strangely, and then would have Mega Man go and investigate. After defeating the 8 Robot Masters, we can have Proto Man or maybe Roll reveal that it was Dr. Wily behind the entire thing, and then we can do our 2 castles. If Dr. Wily just wants to wear a disguise, maybe he could disguise himself as something other than a different old guy, and maybe he can choose a less fake-sounding name than Mr. X. I mean, McLovin is more believable than Mr. X. And why would Dr. Wily even wear a disguise? We already know that he can make a convincing robot that would look like someone else, so he can just do that. If the developers want to introduce the idea of there being a bigger bad guy, somebody that's been manipulating Dr. Wily the entire time, it would work better if Dr. Wily was already in prison, so we know for a fact that they can't be the same guy. Perhaps Dr. Wily would claim that he had been innocent the entire time, and that he had been working for this Mr. X guy, and whenever we reveal that Mr. X was just one of Dr. Wily's cronies, we'll also find out that the entire plot was a bit of misdirection so that they could break Wily out of prison. That's a much better plot. The Mega Man X series does story much better, so that proves that it's possible to do with a game like this, but I think the developers were working on a very short development cycle to make these games, so it doesn't surprise me that they wouldn't focus very much on the storyline. One thing that I do like about this game are the Robot Master designs. We're up to almost 50 different Robot Masters in the series, and while there are a few generic ones here like Flame Man and Blizzard Man, there's a lot of very creative designs here, like Centaur Man, Night Man, Yamato Man, Plant Man. These bosses are pretty cool. Now that we're this deep into the series, this game does feel a bit on the short side, and while I don't think they needed to make more levels, I would appreciate some different difficulty options. That would give it some more replay value. It would be nice to be able to play the game again on a difficult mode where the enemies just deal more damage, and I don't think that would take very much work to implement for the programmers. Maybe in this difficult mode you wouldn't be allowed to use energy tanks either, so that would make it a good bit harder. It would also be nice to have an easy mode for new players. What if this was your very first Mega Man game? It might be nice to tone things down a bit. Well, I hope this video was able to help you beat Mega Man 6, finally putting the felonious Dr. Wily behind bars. If it did, make sure to give it a like, and make sure to subscribe for more episodes. Because there will always be more poorly disguised mad scientists trying to take over our tournaments. And that's why we'll be back again next week with another video game you can beat. Thanks for watching.